Video game movies. They exist, some are amazing, while others are,
It was Tuesday.
well, not quite. But whether they're great, terrible, or somewhere in between, one thing is clear, video game adaptations are everywhere now. More and more of them keep hitting theaters and streaming services, and honestly, some of them are worth talking about. So today, I figured why not review a couple of these movies and see how they compare to the games they're based on, and ask an important question. Do they still work for someone who knows nothing about the franchise? Now before we go jump in, quick spoiler warning. We'll be talking about multiple video game movies today, so if you haven't seen them and want to go in fresh, you've been warned. So grab your popcorn and a TV remote because now it's time to press play. So let's start with a movie that kicked off video game live action adaptations in the US, for better or worse. Super Mario Bros. In 1993, a lot of people forgot about this adaptation because it came out in the early 90s and it didn't exactly do well. You can see the reviews on IMDb, 4.2 out of 10, Rotten Tomatoes 27%, and Letterboxd 2.1 out of 5. But even so, I'd argue it helped off Hollywood's run of video game adaptations. But besides the bad reviews, it does have some famous actors and actresses, such as Bob Hoskins as Mario from Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Hook, John Leguizamo as Luigi from Romeo and Juliet and John Wick. But it doesn't stop there. Dennis Hopper as King Koopa, aka Bowser from Easy Riders and Speed, Samantha Mathis as Princess Daisy, who appeared in American Psycho, and Fisher Stevens and Richard Edison as Iggy and Spike, known for Short Circuit and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And it's not just the cast, the people behind the scenes are stacked too. The music was done by Alan Silvestri, the same composer behind Back to the Future and The Avengers. We got directors from Max Headroom and even writers from the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. On paper, this movie had everything going for it. Let's start off with the good. Believe it or not, there's actually a few things this movie actually does well. First off, the set designs were amazing. From the sets of Brooklyn, even in the alternate universe of Koopa City. Yes, an alternate universe. In this version of the story, the timeline splits after the meteor that wiped out the dinosaurs, creating a parallel world, where they evolved instead. And honestly, the sets in this world are impressive. They lean fully into the dark dystopian feel, industrial, grimy, and completely unlike anything you expect from a Mario movie. But whether it fits the source material or not, you can't deny the effort that went into building it. The movies also kept some of the video game elements such as Bob-omb, Thwomp, and of course, Yoshi. We talked about the good. Now, what about the bad? Because while the sets are impressive, they don't feel like Mario. The world is gritty, dark, and industrial. There's no bright colors, no whimsical environments, none of the charm you expect from the games. It feels less like a Mushroom Kingdom and more like a dystopian sci-fi movie. And the tone is all over the place. At times, it feels like a kid's movie, then suddenly it shifts to something much darker, like it's trying to appeal to an older audience. Let me mention, this movie is rated PG. It never really finds a balance, and it makes it hard to know who this movie is actually for. And then, there's the story. In a lot of ways, it feels like Luigi is the main character. He's the one that meets Daisy. He's the one with the emotional drive, and he's the one pushing the story forward. Meanwhile, Mario feels more like the tough older brother along for the ride, instead of the hero. And when your movie is called Super Mario Bros., that's a problem. It kind of feels like Luigi Brothers featuring Mario. And then there's the ugly. The movie went through many script rewrites due to Disney's involvement, since Hollywood Pictures was a division through Walt Disney Pictures. So with Disney having more creative input, Nintendo couldn't really do anything, which also may have caused confusing story. The story itself is hard to follow at times. You got alternate dimensions, involving dinosaurs, political plots, and somehow it all feels disconnected instead of building a clear adventure. It just feels confusing. And at the end of the day, it doesn't feel like Mario. The Characters don't act like their game counterparts, the world doesn't look like it, and the tone doesn't match it. It's an adaptation in name more than anything else. But even with all that, Super Mario Bros. Is important because it showed Hollywood what happens when you stray too far from the source material. It may not have been a success, but it was a beginning. Sometimes you have to fail first before you level up, and it only took about 30 years to finally get it right. This one feels right. From the moment the movie opens, you're back in Brooklyn. Bright, colorful, full of life, and already closer to the tone Mario should have. And yeah, Mario being from Brooklyn isn't new. That's been part of the character for years. A working class plumber from New York before being pulled into the Mushroom Kingdom. And this time, it's not Disney, it's Illumination, the same studio behind Despicable Me, The Secret Life of Pets, and Minions. You can even spot a minion in the cart during the opening logo, a fun little nod before the movie even begins. And honestly, I couldn't find anything that really pulled me out of the experience, nothing that made me disconnect, nothing that felt out of place. The movie follows its own story without disconnecting from the source material. It's not too far-fetched, and the pacing feels just right. It keeps moving but never feels rushed, and it gives you just enough time to enjoy each moment before jumping into the next. And throughout the film, there are tons of Easter eggs pulled straight from the game, little details that fans will instantly recognize. You got like Punch Out Pizzeria, references to level 1-2, Mario Kart sequences, and even the Power Star theme. And it's not just visual, the music plays a huge role too. The composer weaves in classic Nintendo themes to Donkey Kong. So even the soundtrack feels familiar. It's the kind of fan service that doesn't feel forced, it feels natural. And then there's the cast. You got Chris Pratt as Mario, Charlie Day as Luigi, Anya Taylor-Joy as Peach, Jack Black as Bowser, and Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. And honestly, they all fit their roles surprisingly well. Jack Black as Bowser especially stands out, bringing both humor and personality to the character. And even the original voice of Mario makes an appearance, which is a really nice touch for longtime fans. If there's anything to say, it does play things a little safe. The story is simple and it doesn't try to go very deep, but honestly, that feels intentional. This movie knows exactly what it is, and it doesn't try to reinvent Mario, it just embraces everything that made the game special in the first place. And because of that, it finally gets Mario right, but not every adaptation goes for fun and nostalgia, some aim for something much deeper. Now let's talk about an adaptation that takes a very different approach, The Last of Us. The series premiered in 2023 on HBO Max based on the game of the same name released in 2013. It follows Joel, played by Pedro Pascal, and Ellie, played by Bella Ramsey, two survivors trying to navigate a post-apocalyptic world. But this isn't just a story about survival, it's about relationship, loss, and what people are willing to do to protect the ones they care about, and sometimes the cost of that protection. And what really stands out is how faithful the series is to the game. A lot of these scenes are recreated almost shot for shot, but at the same time, the show expands on the world in a way the game couldn't. It takes moments that were brief in the game and turns them into full stories. Even the infected, the zombies of this world, feel authentic to the game. From the way they move to how the infection spreads, it stays true to the source. But the show also expands on the lore, making the world feel even more dangerous and alive. Pedro Pascal brings a grounded, emotional weight to Joel, while Bella Ramsey gives Ellie a mix of toughness and vulnerability. And as the series goes on, you really feel that relationship evolve. The chemistry is what carries the entire show. And visually, the show looks incredible. From abandoned cities to quiet emotional moments, it feels cinematic in a way most video game adaptations don't. It doesn't just look like the game, it feels like a high-end drama. Unlike Mario, which focuses on fun and nostalgia, The Last of Us leans fully into storytelling. It slows things down, builds the characters, and lets those emotional moments really hit. If there's anything to say, some episodes move a slower pace, and not every storyline gets as much time as it could. But honestly, the slower pace is what makes the emotional moments land. This isn't just a good video game adaptation, it proves that these stories can work just as well, if not better, outside of games. It's just a great show, period. And even though the hype around this one has settled, it's still one of the best video game adaptations out there, Arcane. This animated series premiered on Netflix in 2021, based on the world of League of Legends, a game known more for its gameplay than its story. But somehow, Arcane takes that world and turns it into something much bigger. At its core, Arcane is the story of two sisters, Vi and Jinx, growing up in divided worlds, a world split between Piltover, the city of progress, and Zaun, the city beneath it, filled with struggle and survival. And what makes this story so compelling is how grounded it feels. Even though it's set in a fantasy world with advanced technology and magic, the conflict feels real. Class divide, power, corruption, family, it all hits in a way that feels surprisingly human. And then there's the animation. This show looks absolutely incredible. It blends hand-painted textures with 3D animation in a way that feels completely unique. Every frame feels intentional, like a moving piece of artwork. From the lighting to the color to the character expressions, everything is crafted with detail. It's not just animated, it's designed. But what really makes Arcane stand out is its characters. Every character has motivations, every character has flaws. The relationship between Vi and Jinx is at the heart of the story, and it's one of the most emotional arcs you'll see in any series. You'll understand both sides even when they're in conflict, and that's what makes it hit so hard. And just like The Last of Us, you don't really need to know anything about League of Legends to enjoy this. It stands completely on its own, but if you do know the game, you'll notice how carefully they have adapted the characters, the world, and the lore. It respects the source material without being limited by it. The way the story is told is also worth mentioning. It's layered with multiple storylines happening at once, but they all connect. And instead of rushing through things, it takes its time building tension. Every decision matters. Every action has consequences. And when those moments hit, they really hit. The music also plays a huge role in setting the tone. From emotional moments to high energy sequences, the soundtrack enhances everything you're seeing on screen. It's not just the background music, it's part of the storytelling. If there's anything to say, it can be a lot to take in at first. There are multiple characters, locations, and storylines, and the show doesn't always slow down to explain everything, so it might feel a little overwhelming early on. But once it clicks, it really clicks. Where Mario focuses on fun and nostalgia, The Last of Us focuses on grounded emotional storytelling. Arcane brings something different. It blends style, emotions, and world building into something that feels completely unique. And while we've seen how far video game adaptations have come, there are still many video game adaptations out there and some upcoming. Here are some upcoming adaptations. Right now in theaters, we've got the next Super Mario movie, The Super Mario Galaxy. This time, Mario's adventures expands beyond what we've seen before, taking him into bigger worlds, new challenges, and familiar faces from across the franchise. It builds directly on the success of the 2023 film, keeping the same colorful energy, fast pacing, and game-inspired storytelling. If it delivers on that, this could be another huge win for Nintendo. Mortal Kombat 2 is stepping things up. This time, the story is expected to fully embrace the tournament, bringing together more iconic fighters and pushing the action to the next level. Fans are hoping for bigger fists, more characters, and a stronger focus on what makes Mortal Kombat, well, Mortal Kombat.
Our fates would not be settled by the size of our armies. They would be decided by combat.
Street Fighter is getting another shot at the big screen. The story centers around fighters from across the globe, each with its own styles, rivalries, and motivations, coming together in a worldwide competition after past attempts. This reboot has a lot to prove, but if it focuses on the characters, it could finally land. A new Resident Evil film is on the way, this version expected to return to the roots of the franchise, focusing on survival horror, isolated environments, and the tension that made the game so iconic. Less action, more fear. And that's exactly what fans have been waiting for. Sonic the Hedgehog 4 continues one of the most successful video game movies series so far, with each film expanding Sonic's world, introducing new allies, new enemies, and raising the stakes. At this point, this franchise knows what it works, and it doesn't look like it's slowing down.
The chaos has only just begun.
And then there's The Legend of Zelda, one of the most anticipated adaptations ever. The story will follow Link on a journey across Hyrule, facing a growing evil while protecting the kingdom, a fantasy world filled with adventure, mystery, and iconic characters. If this lands, it could be something really special. Then there's the video game television adaptations. God of War is getting a series following Kratos and his son on a dangerous journey through a world of gods and monsters. If they capture the story right, this could be huge. Tomb Raider is also getting a new series, bringing Lara Croft's adventure back to the screen, a mix of action, exploration, and survival. And Assassin's Creed is getting another adaptation, this time as a series, exploring history, hidden wars, and the conflict between assassins and Templars, which might work better as a long-form story. So whether it's movies or television, video game adaptations aren't slowing down anytime soon. And if they keep learning from the past, the future of video game adaptations might be the best we've ever seen. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I can't wait to watch these upcoming movies and television. Honestly, I can't wait for Sophie Turner as Tomb Raider and see the new Street Fighter. And also tell me what you're excited to see in my Discord. Over there, you can tell me what you're playing and give me an idea on what to play next. So as always, grab a control and press play.